Blog Talk Radio.
Everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and it's March 19th, 2015. Welcome to the program. We've got a great show for you tonight. We've got another round of Coach's Corner here in just a few moments. I'm going to bring the panel on here in just a second or two after I make a few announcements. And then a little bit later on in the show, of course, I'm going to be joined by the president and founder of Spirit of Golf, LLC, Mr. Tim Kremer, who was actually on the Coach's Corner panel last week. But let me just, before I bring the gang on here, let me just remind everybody, of course, we're live every Thursday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Central Time, and that's 7 to 9 for you on the East Coast, and that's 4 to 6 for you Pacific Time for you on the West Coast. Quickest way to get here, if you haven't been able to find us, go to blogtalkradio.com. Up in the search key, you can type Golf Talk Live, and that will bring you right to the main page, and you can listen to the broadcast live there. Or you can also download the broadcast from iTunes as well. It's also available at iTunes. Just go into the podcast section, type in Golf Talk Live, and that'll get you there as well. And if you miss any of the shows, if you're not able to tune in during any of those times during the live broadcast, you can go to either iTunes or to the blogtalkradio.com station, and you can go a little bit down, you can see the on-demand section, and that will have all of the previously aired shows. They are all live, of course, on Thursday nights, but they are auto-recorded. So if you miss us during the live broadcast, you can certainly pick it up there in case you missed any of the episodes. And strongly suggest you do, especially these last few weeks. We've been working on the Coach's Corner panel, had some great discussions here, and we're going to have another one tonight. Tonight, of course, the topic is going to be on fitness and nutrition. We're going to get you guys into shape for the new year. In preparation for golf season, and tell you some of the do's and don'ts of things, what you should be eating and not eating when you're before the round, during, and even after the round. So we'll talk about that in just a second, but let me just bring on the panel here. First up, of course, we've got Eric Cogorno, who is a coach and instructor up at Bethlehem Golf Club up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. He's going to be joining us. Jamie Leno-Zemron, who is both an LPGA Class A teacher professional as well as speaker, instructor, body worker, consultant, you name it, she does it all, holds several degrees both in psychology and martial arts. And rounding out the panel, of course, is Mr. Bob Foreman. He's a certified golf fitness instructor, author, and speaker who is internationally recognized as a leader in golf fitness programming. Jamie and gentlemen, welcome to Golf Talk Live.
Hey, Ted.
Thank you, Ted. Happy to be here.
And Bob, I see you squeaked right in the wire. As they say, better late than never. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for doing this. I know it's not always easy to get everybody rounded up for a Thursday evening. Lots of things going on in your own lives. So I appreciate you taking some time and sharing your thoughts and input with my audience when you do come on. So thank you, guys, and Jamie as well for doing that.
Our pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to be here.
All right. Perfect. And so let's start things off first. I'm sorry, I did forget one more thing. I apologize. Hang tight there for just 1 second. Also, if you want to call into the program any time during the live broadcast, you can do so at area code 646-716-4667. You can get updates on social media on Facebook at Golf Talk Live blog. Make sure you go there, and when you do, throw a like on the page as well. You can also follow me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO. And again, thank you to all the followers, the new followers from last week. And you can also contact me personally if you have any questions or comments about the show, or if you want to come on as a guest. You can email me at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. And again, thank you for joining us tonight. Okay, guys, sorry about that. I forgot to, I got so distracted there, I forgot to read that little bit of information out. Okay, as I mentioned, Bob, since you had come in here just a little bit later than the others, tonight we're going to talk about, in the Coach's Corner panel, we're going to talk about fitness and a little bit about nutrition as well. So I wanted to talk about some of the things first. I'll just sort of set everybody up here, and then what I'm going to do is sometimes some of the questions or comments we may not necessarily have all three of you answer. What I may do is ask a question of one of you, and you're all welcome certainly to chime in, but I may move to another question just so we can keep things moving. But Bob, since you're later in the panel here, I'm going to throw you under the bus first. But let me just say this. A lot of people in the sports medicine area and fitness area, there are a number of factors that contribute in the golf swing injury category, if you will. We're going to talk about injuries and that as well. One of the things it causes it is overuse and overpractice, poor swing mechanics, overswinging, not warming up the muscles properly, rotational stresses placed on the spine, of course, creating back injuries, and even incorrect grip and setup a lot of times can cause some of these injuries. And, of course, traumatic force to the body resulting from a poorly executed swing can also cause some problems. So, Bob, I want you to start us off here and just talk about, since we're gearing up for a new golf season here, why, what people should have been doing, let's say, in some of the winter months in the off season for those that didn't have the benefits of being in a warmer climate, what they should have been doing in preparation for this season.
Well, I think, Ted, a lot of people just don't realize that their bodies are a big part of the golf swing, and they take for granted that they can just go out there and start swinging a club and not really worry about their condition. But unfortunately, I've worked with quite a few golfers over the years, and it's always the same case. Every single one that I've put through a physical assessment have at least 2 up to 6, or 7 things deficient in their body in terms of muscle imbalance, muscle tightness, muscle weakness. And, those factors impact, not only their performance and their swing efficiency, but it also, in many cases, sets them up for injury, as you had mentioned. So right. In the off season, and it's not too late now, I think one of the biggest things that golfers can do to help themselves is to get into a good stretching program. Flexibility is one of the biggest factors. Mobility, both upper and lower body, are usually key components that are lacking in many golfers. And just by getting into a good stretching program, taking yoga, just doing stuff like that can help them tremendously.
Yeah, a lot of people, very well said. Thank you, Bob. A lot of people have talked here lately really about some of the benefits of yoga, especially for golf. I mean, if you went back a few years, it would kind of be taboo, particularly for us guys. But more and more are starting to realize the benefits of yoga. So that's a great point. And there's a lot of other components as well. Just some good stretching is always good. But Jamie, I want to bring you in here as well. And as I mentioned through some of the points here that cause the injury, one of the injuries, one of the prominent injuries, especially in golf, is back pain. I just want to read something here very quickly, and then I want you to comment as well. When it pertains to back pain, there's an estimation of anywhere from 75 to 85% of all, and we're using the U.S. here, of course, as our example, of all Americans will experience some form of back pain during their lifetime, and the numbers may even be higher among golfers just because of the rotational stresses of the swing, and that can certainly place considerable pressure on the spine and muscles. So obviously we know back pain is very common with a lot of golfers. What are some of the reasons do you think that that's happening, other than what was mentioned? And what are some things that people can do to strengthen those back muscles to help with their golf swing?
Well, excellent question. And just as kind of a basis altogether is that so many people have not thought of golf as a sport. And until really Tiger came around and Annika and started taking fitness seriously and doing a lot of conditioning, people just sort of thought it was like a nice walk in the grass, right? And never treated themselves really as athletes and started to do the kinds of conditioning that athletes do. Now, I don't think we have to go so far as the pros do, and, it gets pretty intense even on the Golf Channel looking at fitness, and I think that can sometimes put people off. I've actually created a program called Make Your Golf Club Your Health Club, and so that people will actually use their golf club to stretch, to strengthen, and to your point around back injuries or the difficulties with back pain in the golf swing, I think people need to realize how much rotational force and how much energy is really their body is managing. We start at 0 miles per hour when we're addressing the golf ball. It takes roughly 1 second, maybe a few hundredths of a second more, to take the club from address to the top of the backswing back to impact, and even less time to finish the swing. And in that amount of time, most people are generating anywhere from 70, 80, 90, over 100 miles per hour of club head speed. That's a lot of energetic force in the body, and it's our skeletal structure, our bones and our muscles and our tendons and ligaments that are handling all of that energy, all that force. So no wonder that fitness is important and that, we sustain some injuries. As far as back pain, obviously stretching is important. And I'll talk a little bit about stretching out the spine, but there are also the supporting muscles, such as your quads, the glute muscles, all the pelvic support muscles, and also what's called the erector spinae muscles. Those are the two big strap muscles along your spine, sacrospinalis muscles. All those need to be strong. And so when the legs and all the supporting muscles are stronger, that helps the actual back pain or prevention of back pain. And also, for example, stretching the hamstrings, stretching the body, and using less tension. The more we're gripping the club tight and grinding our teeth and taking these big, bicep kind of swings, rather than actually using the strength in our legs, the supportive, strong muscles of the lower body, which also gives stability and balance to the golf swing, and then doing spinal rotational exercises, and as I said, stretching and strengthening exercises to these varying muscles, not only the back itself. This is what protects the back. And I have, for example, the very first exercise in my program that's called Golf Bliss, balance, lengthen, integrate, stretch, strengthen. Actually, you sort of use your golf club, you bend at a 90-degree angle. It starts to stretch out your back, your low back, your hamstrings, also the lat muscles. And then you do this sort of pulsing motion that starts to stretch and to soften the entire spine. It creates more space between the vertebrae. And these kinds of exercises, they're so easily doable. You don't have to necessarily get down on a mat or go to a gym or get on ropes and pulleys. You can use your golf club and do these exercises indoors, outdoors, on season, off season. And it's this kind of thing that's so important for everybody to do. And I think that fitness needs to be accessible.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more, and thank you for that. Eric, I want to let you have an opportunity as well, and I want to approach this a little bit differently with you because I know that you do a lot of teaching and coaching up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Eric, what are some of the things both you personally do and what you try to instill to your students as you're moving into the new season to get them sort of fit and ready? Obviously, some people might belong to a gym and they have sort of their own fitness regimen, but obviously the golf swing is something uniquely different than most other sports, so there's certain other muscles that get engaged that quite often don't get engaged in maybe some of the other sports as effectively. So what are some things that you try to do to get yourself ready both for the season, but also when you're ready to go out and play around yourself? And then what do you try to instill to your students that you're working with?
Yeah, so I think it depends on the category of golfer, at least in my case. So I generally can lump the people that I work with in two categories, one being competitive golfers and others being recreational golfers.
Sure.
So the competitive golfers that I work with who want to play in tournaments, and that's a high priority in their life, their fitness program is going to be more intensive and more longer term versus the recreational golfers that I work with, generally not as intensive. For me, the people that I see, it's more just about general movement. Like, the average person that I work with who drives to work for a half hour in a car, they're at work sitting down for 8 hours, they're driving home for a half hour, they're sleeping for 8 hours a day, right? That doesn't leave a lot of time to move. Like, people are standing still or sitting still for long periods of time. So even just getting out and walking for a half hour a day, like just moving for a lot of people is a big step forward. So it depends. I mean, the competitive. I work with a lot of competitive junior players, so they're on fitness programs 12 months a year. That's their fitness program is as intensive as the golf itself. It's almost like 50-50. The general golfers during the winter, I advise everyone to go see someone and get evaluated. Some people choose to do it, some don't. But obviously, in the off season would be the time to do those things. But just movement, just get up and move, versus sitting around all day is step one. Honestly, for 80% plus people that I see, they need that first before anything else. At least in my opinion.
Right, and let me just sort of a follow-up with you, Eric, on that. How important do you think, obviously we know, and Bob and Jamie, we all know, being in the industry or being close to the industry, know the answer to this, but how important is it really to warm up the muscles before you play around? In other words, if you're just jumping out of your car and going to the first tee and forget about, practice and hitting golf balls, obviously that's important too, but I want to just talk about the warm-up itself. How important is that before going out to play around?
Yeah, I think critical, and I think the warm up needs to be more dynamic versus sort of static stretching, like the old arm across your chest, touch your toes kind of deal. Versus again, it's just moving around, getting blood flowing. So I think it's critically important for not only the performance of that round, golf wise, right, in terms of striking the ball well, but just injury prevention and anything else. I think what that warm-up needs to look like specifically is sort of dependent upon the person. But in general, I'm looking for something more dynamic and more moving versus sort of a static stretching look.
Yeah, I agree. Well said. I want to throw in it. Sorry, go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, I just wanted to say that I definitely agree with that. It's critical to do some warming up and get the blood flowing and to do some stretching and strengthening. Because it will prevent injuries, and it's also part of peak performance. You're going to make better swings when you can actually, turn and extend and have the stability to support all of that impact. And I've had experiences. I do work with a lot of tournaments and charity tournaments, and I'll come and do, say, a 15, 20-minute warm-up, fitness warm-up, and there's not time to do a whole golf lessons or anything like that, but just having better strength, better stability, better flexibility, and better focus from a good warm-up. I have seen, hundreds of people play better right off the bat, and they come in at the end, they're like, oh my God, I was hitting the ball so much farther because they're looser, they have some club head speed, or they have more strength, they're more stable, they're staying centered when they hit the golf ball, they're not swaying and lifting and all of this sort of thing. And those things are directly related to fitness. So I have seen over and over through the years, just hundreds, thousands of people swing better, play better, hit the ball better, more consistency, more accuracy, more distance, only based on doing a warm-up and having some mild to medium fitness. And I think the distinction between really better competitive players and your average player is a good one to make. Just a certain amount of fitness will really increase everybody's playing and prevent injuries. Absolutely essential.
Yeah, and it's not just. Obviously we're focusing here tonight on golf, and that's sort of all of our passion. But doing that for everyday life is important, regardless of whether you're playing golf or not. So that's something. And let me just sort of throw this little disclaimer in there. We're not necessarily saying or suggesting any specific exercises, although we may touch on a few as the evening goes on. But certainly you want to make sure those that are tuning into the program that you consult with a physician if you're somebody that's not in sort of a regular routine. Don't go out there and, as Jamie had indicated on the Golf Channel, sometimes they'll have some very rigorous movements and things, and we certainly want to make sure that you're well prepared before you go out and do that. So this is really just informational and just to let you know that some of the things that you can do in getting prepared, not only for the season, but during the season as well. Bob, I want to ask you just one more thing along this lines about warming up and things like that. What about after a round? You know, you've warmed up, you've done everything as the other two have suggested. You've maybe played a pretty decent round, and now you're done. Is there something post round that we should be thinking about doing, or is it not necessary at that point?
Well, you know, you got to figure today an average round is 5 hours plus. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the important thing is it is very important to warm up and to stretch before you get to the driving range or before you go out on the first tee. But golf is kind of a sport where you're doing a lot of standing around and a lot of sitting if you're taking a golf cart in between shots.
Right.
So I think it's important that you maintain some sort of stretching routine throughout the round as well, because, I mean, you can easily tighten up during the round, and, you know, that can increase the risk of injury. But, definitely after a round, you know, if you're not going to the 19th hole, you know, it's a good idea when you get home just to do a little post-stretch, just to kind of, again, hit the muscle groups and
sure.
A good time to work on flexibility. So, I mean, we can't get enough stretching, most of us. And so anytime you can spend working on your flexibility and range of motion is definitely quality time.
Well said, and thank you for that. Sorry, Jamie.
Could I chime in? Yeah,
sure.
I just wanted to chime in because what he's saying is so true, that it's during those 4 or 5 hours that people need to continue to do some stretching, stay loose, stay warm. And people have seen Miguel Angel Jimenez. They've seen him stretching using his golf club, and it's actually a really great example because we can use our golf club to stretch. We can hold on to the golf cart and do some stretches and some strengthening exercises. So it's very possible to do all along the way so that you keep your body and your mind in good shape, focused, loose, strong, relaxed. It's kind of interesting how many people say that they do better once they have a beer or something, right? And why do they have a beer? So they loosen up, so that they relax. Well, what if you found some ways that without the alcohol, nothing wrong with it, but, you know, that you could actually do that and, you know, without having to wait to have a beer, you know, and so that you could be in a more relaxed place.
Right, I agree, and not to take away from those that want to enjoy one or so, but I'm of the camp. I prefer to have mine after the round when I can sit back and enjoy it and not. But that's my personal thing. I want to, just to make note of somebody else. I can remember on a few. Watching a few rounds of golf over the years, and somebody else that used to kind of do a little stretching, and that was Freddie Couples. And I was always kind of surprised at, and a lot of it, I'm sure, had to do with the fact he's had back issues for many, many years. So I'm sure a lot of that was just to loosen up and keep his back in fluid motion. So, a lot of the players, you don't always see it because the camera kind of pans away and goes to the next player and, whoever might be shooting at the time. And a lot of things happen in between. So I'm sure a lot of these guys, especially at the elite level and the ladies as well, I'm sure are doing things along the way that we don't always get to see off camera. But if you've ever been to a live tournament, it's amazing sometimes what you do see as you're walking and following some of the players. Eric, I'm gonna start you off on this one here. This is more of a nutritional. I'm going to kind of go a little bit back and forth. I don't really have a lot in the nutrition area, but there's a lot of things, for instance, and I guess it's up to individual or personal preference of what you want to do, but what are some things that you personally, and I'm asking you to do this personally because I'm, as I said, throwing you under the bus here, as far as preparation, that you like to eat before a round, in your opinion, that you like to get yourself prepared, good or bad, it doesn't matter. I'm just curious. And again, how important is that sort of breakfast meal, if you will, if you're playing a morning round, to set the tone for the rest of the day?
Yeah, so the two things I would want to touch on, for me, certainly, like you said, this is not my area of expertise, but I'm around it enough where, for me, myself, it's twofold. It's one, that I'm an overeater, Ted, right? Like I eat to the point where I almost hate myself typically. So in the morning for me, before I go play, it's just like it's about it not being too much and being light. That would be A. And then the second part that's most important that I've found for myself and for most people that I'm communicating with is that you're eating throughout the round, and that it's not it's not a big breakfast, bacon, egg, and sausage, big plate before you go out, and then a hot dog and a whatever at the turn. It's just that there's periodic eating throughout the round of light things, whatever those things may be, that works for that person and their energy levels and their concentration. But for me, it's just not too much in the beginning, and then that there's a sufficient amount throughout the round. I mean, a lot of people, especially going back to the tournament players that I work with, they eat before they go out, and then they don't eat until they're done. And and they lose concentration halfway through. So I just think it's about how often, from my perspective, not a ton before you go out, and then that you're eating throughout.
Yeah, and that's very interesting because I agree with that. I think that one of the problems that a lot of whether it be amateur and I'm sure even some of the professionals, Jack Nicklaus, when he talked about Golf My Way in his book and in subsequent videos, he talked about having certainly a good breakfast before he left, but he also makes sure he packs some snacks. Now, again, it's debatable on whether some of those snacks in today's standards and today's mindset, whether they would be considered good. I think he would often have a banana and maybe even a granola bar and things like that. But he would have, and even sometimes he'd pack a sandwich that his wife Barbara would make. But Jamie, let me ask you this, along the lines of what Eric was just talking about. Is it better to kind of load up front before the round, or is it maybe better just to have a reasonable breakfast and maybe have something to sort of snack or build, keep your energy levels up throughout the round? What would your opinion be on that, Jamie?
Well, I would vote for the latter. I would say it's individual, our different needs and the way that we've all trained our bodies and what we need. But in general, I would say that, as you said, a reasonable breakfast and with protein and all.
Sure.
But keeping the blood sugar up and trying to keep some levelness to our blood sugar is, I think, what's really critical, so that we don't have these dips and ups and downs, and we're able to keep our energy level up. We're able to keep our focus up. So I would, I definitely would vote for what you said second there, eating throughout, and small amounts that could keep us in a good place. And then the other part of that's so important, of course, is hydration. And
sure.
that means water. That doesn't mean all the sugary drinks. Some people like Gatorade and those kinds of things with electrolytes, and that's fine. But it's really, really important, primarily, I think, to keep our hydration up.
Yeah, and it's funny that you touched on that. I have a list here of just a few things that they talk about, both good and bad. Of course, hot dogs. Again, it depends on the type of hot dog it is, can be good. And don't get me wrong, for those of you tuning into the program, I don't want to, sound like I'm jumping on the bandwagon of eating, nothing but rice cakes and things like that. I mean, certainly you want to be out and have an enjoyable experience. But, a lot of people, I've heard them complain over the years as I teach golf as well, about their energy levels throughout the rounds. And as Jamie had just talked about, these sports drinks and things like Gatorade and so forth can be good, but sometimes people can overdo that as well, and you get too much of the electrolytes in your body, more than what your body really needs, and it sort of defeats the purpose. Also, too, a lot of these drinks are very high in sodium, which most people get plenty in their regular diet, and also other artificial sugars and things like that. So as you indicated, Jamie, I think drinking water, keeping well hydrated, maybe eating a banana or something along the way, or some unsalted nuts like almonds are always good source of protein, maybe a handful of almonds or something you can nibble on as you're walking or even driving your cart. There's a lot of things out there, nutrition bars, some people like those. And I personally, I don't care. I think, it's up to the individual, what they want to eat. But just be mindful of the calorie counts and things like that. And also, more importantly, the amount of sodium and the amount of sugars in there, because as I think Eric had pointed out, you don't want to be dipping up and down throughout the round. And that's going to cause problems. And it affects your game a lot more than I think most people realize. So great comments, guys, and thank you for that. I know that's a little bit different, and it's hard to really nail down because it is a personal preference. But I want people to understand that, they need to really be conscious of what they're eating, what they're putting in their bodies to get the best performance that they can. Let's talk a little bit about, Bob, I want to bring you in on this one here. I don't want to get back into another sort of injury right away, but what are some things that golfers can do to prepare themselves in addition to stretching and things like that? What's a good warm-up, in your opinion, that somebody can do to get prepared, not only for a great round, but just to continue on throughout the day?
Well, I think, some of the common deficiencies that you see in a lot of golfers and in people in general, number one is the mid-back area. The T-spine, thoracic spine tends to be tight in a lot of folks. And that's where really rotation in the golf swing should come from. A lot of people think it's really the lower back that where they're making the turn, and really the lower back is made more for stability, where the mid-back, the section just above the lower back, is where, again, you should be able to make those turns. And the higher you go up on the thoracic spine, the more rotation you should get. A lot of time the muscle groups in that area are tight. So, good stretches to do for the upper back. Again, as Jamie said, with the golf club is just to stick the golf club against your back, wrap your arms around it, and just nice and easy do a rotation to the right and to the left. Sustain the stretch as you do. You don't want to repetitively go back and forth because that shearing motion is really not good for the discs in the back, even though that's what we do when we play golf. So
right.
You want to try to avoid doing that, all the other time. So a nice static stretch there might be a good thing to do. A lot of folks also have tightness in the lower body, in the hip area. I find a lot of golfers with tightness in the hamstrings, tightness in the hip flexors, tightness in the internal hip rotators, all attached to the hip bone, and all will have an effect on the freedom of movement in the hip. And that's all you hear about now is Rory McIlroy's hip rotation and hip speed. So I think if you can isolate some stretches, as Eric had said, the dynamic stretches are always good to do. You may want to do them even before you go to the golf course so that you're not doing karaoke's or grapevines up and down the practice range because everybody will look at you like you're crazy. But, you may want to get into some dynamic type movements before you go to the golf range, and then you can stretch, before you actually start hitting some golf balls. And if I could just go back to the nutrition question real quick.
Sure.
I think one of the key things, too, big mistake that a lot of golfers make is that they'll load up on simple sugars, simple carbohydrates, like the donuts and the pastries and the confectionery stuff. And that's the stuff that's going to get into your system quick. The blood sugar is going to get into your system quick, and as quick as it gets into the system, it's going to get out of your system, and that's when you hit the bunk, the fatigue level.
Yep.
So I think, it's important to, if you're going to isolate, if you're going to fuel up, that you fuel up on complex carbohydrates, your whole grains. And as Jamie had said, you throw some protein in there, you throw a little bit of fat. That'll slow the blood sugar, ingestion as well as, the takeaway out of the blood system. So your blood sugar levels will remain higher longer throughout the course, the round. So just be careful of the white sugars and the white flour products.
Yeah, and one other thing too that, and I'm sure we've all, when we've been out the golf course, we've seen many players over the years. Maybe not so much. I'm sure you still see some today, but the younger group coming up now, I think, is a little bit, for the most part, a little bit more health conscious. Some of them certainly see that out on the tour. The one thing that I used to see all the time is, come the turn, everybody's loading up on a hot dog or a burger, and in some cases, as Jamie put it, a beer or even two. And by the time they are easing into the second half of their 18, they're becoming very lethargic. The sugar rushes are starting to go the other way. They've eaten too much or drank too much, whatever the case may be. And they're struggling to get through, and I think that's part of the reason for slow play as well. if you want my honest opinion, is I think that people are just don't have the energy level. So I think, certainly you don't have to be fanatical in every case about what you eat, but I think you do have to be, as all of you have pointed out, you have to be mindful. If you want to go out and play your best golf, I mean, there's nothing worse than hearing people grumble in the 19th hole, as you said, grumbling about how a terrible round, and they just didn't seem to have enough steam left to get those last 3 holes in. Well, it's probably what you ate at the turn, or probably what you didn't eat this morning, getting ready for that round. So, great points. Eric, I want to ask you.
Could I chime in? I just want to chime in on that.
You certainly can.
With a personal experience, I think people don't realize that digestion itself takes energy. And so this is a caveat against overeating, and like you say, maybe overeating at the turn. I had a really interesting experience just about 3-4 years ago. I was actually leading a tournament, and at the turn, I ate a giant roast beef sandwich and a few other things. I was thinking, boy, I got to keep my energy up. I want to win this thing, right? And I had the strangest experience. On about the 13th hole, I suddenly started feeling kind of odd. I mean, I was getting a little almost dizzy or something. My energy plummeted. I couldn't focus, and that is very, very unusual for me. It had never happened to me, and I think I overate, quite honestly, because that hadn't happened before. And it also speaks to this point about every person really needs to know their own body and how you function best. And my body is just not used to getting a great big lunch at the turn. That's not what I usually do. But I did thinking, this is what I need to win this tournament, and that's how I lost it.
Yeah, and that's a great story too, and it's so true. Who knows? I mean, there could be a myriad of reasons. It could have been, eating maybe too much at that point, or it possibly could even maybe the roast beef itself might have been tainted a little bit, and it could have caused that problem as well. But, it brings up an interesting thing. And a lot of people are probably listening, and they're probably thinking, okay, well, how is this helping my golf game, and what does it have to do with golf? Well, the point that really I want to make with tonight's show in this segment is I want people to understand that if you want to play, regardless of what level, whether you're top level or whether you're just a weekend warrior, if you want to play better golf, you have to start not only treating your body a little bit better, but you have to be mindful of some of the things that you do. And Eric, this sort of leads into what I want to ask you right now. Walk us through, if you will, somebody that's just arriving at the golf course. They've got plenty of time before they're teeing off. What do you try to encourage some of your students in setting up sort of a warm-up routine, and you include a little bit of talk about some of the stretches again if you want, but also about what should they be doing, what should they be practicing on the range in preparation to go out and play that round?
I think I wish everyone who came to the course had ample time to start with. I think that's a bit of a problem in and of itself, but that's another conversation. But those who get there with some sort of time, if I'm separating the two and talking from my perspective of golf performance, the most important thing that I want someone to do before they go on the course, outside of the loosening up, getting the blood flow and moving around, is hitting putts on the green, speed control. So that's on the opposite end of the spectrum of what we've been talking about. But, I mean, I would love that people would go and have enough time to do a full routine. I would love for people to hit balls in the range before they play. But the reality is, to get to the golf course, hit balls before you play, check in, go down to the putting green, hit putts and play. That's another, what are we talking, hour before you play. So I think the question is, what can people do? And it's a good question. What can people do, with the limited amount of time that they have at the course? And I think it is so. I think it is so dependent. I mean, to me, if I see people come and they do some sort of stretching routine, anything, and some sort of dynamic moving around and hit some putts, I'm a happy camper, Ted, because the majority of people are not doing that. So for me, it's just are they doing anything or not doing anything? Them doing anything would make me pretty happy. Yeah.
Jamie, just to add on that, in a perfect world, and as Eric just indicated, unfortunately we don't live in a perfect world, and a lot of people just sort of zip up in their car and throw their bags into the cart if they're using one, and away they go. But ideally, we'd like to see something a little bit different. In a perfect world, Jamie, what do you think needs to be, what people should be doing before they go and play around when they're arriving up?
Great question. Well, I do think that I think people get a bucket of balls, right, get out to the range, and before you even hit a ball is to go through at least a 2, 3, 5, even 8-minute kind of stretching warm-up routine. Again, I focus on make your golf club your health club, so it's very doable, and you're using your golf club and it's starting to work into your actual swing. And then, this is really important, I'm a firm believer, and I think most tour pros warm up this way, which is to start with your wedges and then work up through the clubs, 9, 8, 7. So many people take out their driver and they give this like mighty swing before they've really warmed up. And that's when, seriously though, they can sustain an injury. They'll pull a back muscle. They'll hurt their shoulder. Their wrist hurts. I mean, things happen without doing the proper sequence. And so starting with the shorter shots, and those are the ones that are really your scoring shots anyways, but they're the core of your golf swing. And they allow the body to start to warm up, to start to ease into the swing motion, to start to ease into the impact motion. Taking a giant swing with a driver and with that full impact hurts the body. It's the body that's sustaining that force. So I highly recommend that. Go through the clubs and feel comfortable. That way, too, you feel comfortable with each club that you're going to be pulling out of the bag on the golf course. And I also recommend spending some time on the putting green. And similarly, start with some really short putts. Number one, those are your scoring putts. Those are also the ones that get you centered and set. They even out your stroke. They get you putting straight up the line. And you also want to make a few putts from, if you have time in an ideal world, would be to progressively get to some longer putts so that you start to feel comfortable with those. But more importantly, you also get a sense of the speed of the green and, just kind of what's your rhythm for the day. So if you've been able to go through all of that, and this is something that I do, and I know most people who are playing competitively and the pros do, they try to get there at least an hour and a half early. But even call it an hour. You have time to go through that kind of a warm-up, and also including focus, because you're warming up your mind with your body as well. And having that kind of focus, setting your tempo, setting your timing and rhythm is really important, to playing your best golf.
Right. Let me ask you this as well, Jamie, since I know that you've played out on tour for quite some time. The question I want to ask is, you always hear some of the higher handicap players say, boy, I'd really like to emulate so-and-so, and they kind of give you an example of some of the players they like. Why is it they don't want to emulate? They want to emulate the golf swing, they want to emulate the great scores, but they don't want to emulate the practice that goes into it. What can we do to encourage some of our less than perfect golfers out there, encourage them to sort of step up and understand that if they do some of these things, certainly they don't have to go to the level that some of the tour players do, but they certainly need to put some effort in. How do we encourage them, and what sort of incentive, if you will, can we do with some of these high handicappers out there to get them to play their best golf, but knowing that they have to get out there first and not just warm up, but do some of these other things that we're talking about here tonight?
Well, honestly, I didn't play on tour. Could have played on tour. Played a lot of different kinds of events and all. But I've also am a 5th degree black belt in martial arts, and I mention that because what martial arts is about training. And what's training? It's kind of more than a lesson. Most people are willing maybe to take a lesson here or there, and then they think that's going to do it, and they should be better, as opposed to this sense of training, some things that you do in an ongoing way, on an ongoing basis, so that what many people call muscle memory, gaining confidence, so that all starts to become much more natural and a part of their generally upping their fitness level, their sense of proficiency, their ability to have control over their body and their emotions. And all of that goes with what pros do, which is training, some regular kinds of practice. And one thing I've realized, and as a teaching pro, is that most people don't necessarily have the kind of time or even the money to get out there and practice as much as they might like to, or as much as needed. What does that mean? Being able to have some practices, some exercises, fitness exercises, as well as swing patterning exercises, I call them, that you can do at home, that you could do in your office, that you could stop at the park, and you could be able to have some regular kinds of training. You can even buy little wiffle balls or rubber-sized golf balls put a couple hula hoops down on the grass, and all of a sudden you've made your own little private, range that you can practice on without having to spend extra time traveling, paying extra money, and spend 15, 20 minutes, have a good time out there, and this is part of training. So I think that to gain proficiency, much less mastery, no matter what it is, you could be an artist, you could be an athlete, it really doesn't matter, but we need to do some repetitive practice, and I think that's what you're speaking to. And a little goes a long way. A little more goes an even farther way. Yeah,
exactly. Well said. Bob, I want to, we're talking about some of the injuries as well, obviously that people are going to face throughout their golfing career, whether it be at a high level or whether it be, as I said, your weekend warrior. And some of the common injuries that fall into golf, of course, tendonitis in the elbows, often referred to as tennis elbow, which is actually is a very common one in golf, but it actually, the tennis elbow, of course, affects the outer tendon. Golfer's elbow, which we refer to, is the inner tendon. Obviously, things like knee pain and that. What are some things, obviously we have to exercise, keep ourselves in shape and things like that, but a lot of people sustain these injuries throughout their golf. What are some things that they can do to minimize that? And then I want to talk about, with you, Bob, talk about some of those that maybe have some chronic issues, how they can sort of work around and navigate without putting themselves at too much risk. So let's talk about the first one, some of these injuries that are very common in golf, tendonitis, as I said, knee and joint issues that come up. What are some things, in addition to exercise, that they can do to try and minimize that?
Well, you had said at the beginning of the show, that a lot of injuries are related to one of two things. Either it's related to the musculoskeletal imbalances that we all have in our bodies, or it's due to poor swing mechanics. And in many cases, the muscle deficiencies can encourage poor swing mechanics. So you kind of have a perfect storm there. So I think one of the best things people can do is to get with a certified golf fitness professional and go through a physical assessment to determine where their specific physical deficiencies, the muscle tightness, muscle weakness, muscle imbalances are, because we all have them. To find out where they are, and then to have a customized exercise program developed to correct those deficiencies. And in doing that, number one, you're going to alleviate the potential for injury because, again, when the body is out of alignment, and that's what these deficiencies a lot of times cause, especially with the low back and with issues like you talked about, that just enhances the potential. The swing mechanics, again, as you're correcting the deficiencies in the body, as Jamie had alluded to, you also want to make sure that you're correcting the brain-body connection, the bad habit that you formed, with the poor swing mechanics. And with that, if you can get with a teaching professional so that they can kind of line you up so that you're in better hitting positions, and then you need to practice that over and over and over and over again till that becomes the better habit now. That'll help in terms of reducing the potential for injury. So definitely correcting the deficiencies that you have, improving the flexibility, the strength, and then working on the brain-body connection so that you get into those better hitting positions and, you reduce the potential for injury.
And let me just add one more thing, and Bob, I want you to start this off, and then Jamie and Eric certainly can jump in as well as we go along. But as I mentioned, the other part of the component is those that maybe, and this commonly happens obviously with somebody that's either been injured early on in life, or as we get older, sometimes you have certain degenerative issues, whether it be in the back or maybe arthritis and things like that. So for those people that are maybe dealing with a chronic issue that's certainly not going to be solved and going to go away, they still want to get out there and play golf. What are some things that they can do to, besides loading up with a bunch of medication, can they do to strengthen maybe some of these areas? And again, you can pick an area, Bob, if you want to that's common, but what are some things that some of these golfers, especially some of our senior golfers out there, that deal with some of these issues, as they progress through life?
All right, yeah, let's go back to the low back since that's more prevalent. Number one injury in golfers across the board, all levels. The tour players as well as the amateurs. A lot of times the point of pain is not the cause of pain.
Sure.
And the cause of pain is usually somewhere else in the body. There's a mechanism that leads up to pain. And for backs, again, if you're dealing with just a physical deficiency, you're looking at either like tight hamstrings and or tight hip flexors, which tight hip flexors tend to be more predominant in women, which causes that swaying of the back, the S posture. The tight hamstrings causes more the lower back to flatten out, and that over time, each of those conditions will start to wear out the discs faster. Weak glutes, because we're sitting on them all day, we elongate the glutes, and that tends to weaken them. And Eric brought that up.
What are you trying to say, Bob? You're trying to say that we're sitting on our glutes?
We all have weak butts. I mean, it's amazing how many people that I put through the assessment. There's definitely a majority of them that fail that component, and that's where all your power comes from, really, in the golf swing. So, you need to identify where those areas are and to work on correcting those so that you fix the mechanism that got you to the pain. In a lot of cases with backs, unfortunately, it gets to the point where people decide to have surgeries. They go ahead and, they'll take out a disc, they'll put a spacer in there, you'll feel good for a while, but because you still have that imbalance, that mechanism that led you to the pain, chances are in a very short period of time that lower back discomfort's going to come back, and instead of L4 and L5, they're going to go and take out L3 and L4, and they'll just continue up the chain until someone tells you, hey, you got to stretch out those hamstrings, you got to stretch out those hip flexors, you got to strengthen those glutes.
Yeah, I agree, and we certainly have all seen a lot of that. Jamie, just to maybe expand a little bit more on that as well, obviously we have a lot of senior golfers out there as our population is certainly part of it is aging, and they're out there taking up or continuing to play golf. They're not as fitness savvy as some of the younger generation coming up or some of the more experienced individuals out there. We're not going to get them into a fitness routine. We're not going to get them doing a lot of the exercise that we would like to. So what are some things, again, dealing with some of these issues that we have, just part of life, what do we do with that older generation to help keep them in the best golf shape that we can? What are some things that we can get them to do?
Oh, I love the question. I work with a lot of senior golfers, and my dad is turning 95 in about a month, so
wow.
I've had quite a bit of experience, and it's actually quite wonderful how much some basic fitness will help seniors. And one of the biggest issues seniors have, just in general in their lives, is falling. This is a really serious problem as far as injuries. It can be even life-threatening as we get older and losing our balance. So balance exercises are so important, and it just so happens that balance is extremely important in the golf swing. So
Sure.
Simple exercises. You can hold two golf clubs, just, hold one in each hand, put them just to the sides of your body, and raise your leg and do leg lifts, and being sure that you're lifting your leg from your hip flexors, not letting your knee dangle. This actually activates those core muscles. So you can do simple leg lifts and use the clubs for balance. You can actually sit in a golf cart or sit on a chair and raise your leg, doing leg lifts and out to the front, out to the side. These kinds of simple exercises are really, really important, and they can be done even with your golf club. So what's nice is that the very fitness elements that improve your golf and that allow you to get a greater swing arc, to have a little more club head speed, to make centered contact instead of kind of moving off the ball or lifting up through it, which many people complain about as they get older. They get a little tighter. They start losing distance on their shots. So these fitness elements are really great for improving distance and keeping up the distance, or being able just to play better and play comfortably with less Advil, less aches and pains. And the benefits to your overall health as you age are tremendous. So they work really well together, and that's why I really consider the golf club, make your golf club your health club. You can use it to stretch and to strengthen and to keep yourself more relaxed rather than gripping with that sort of death tension grip on the club.
Right.
And also to keep your mind focused. And these are the very things that help to keep us younger and to help us age better, I would say.
Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly. Eric, speaking of younger, the question I want to ask for you, and this is going to be our final, it's hard to believe this hour has already zipped right by, and I want to give you guys each an opportunity to say a couple of things at the end here. But Eric, obviously we have a lot of young, especially young guys out there that really into fitness programs. Some of them are bulking up, and obviously we know certain things are not conducive to good golf swings, especially if you're getting too bulked up. You're dealing with a lot of different folks out there, I'm sure, but when you're dealing with some of the younger ones that get a little bit too, I guess, rambunctious, for lack of better words, in their fitness routines, you don't necessarily want to deter them from, being healthy and staying in shape, but do you try to offer them other ways of staying fit for golf? And I'm specifically referring for golf, and maybe ratcheting down a little bit some of the exercise that they might be doing that's maybe hampering them from playing some good golf.
Yeah, I mean that's a little more rare in my world, Ted. That it's certainly something that comes up. I think under that scenario, the thing I would make sure of is that the range of motion still exists, because the strength portion of I think it gets overplayed a little bit in golf, right? With the bulking up too big or having too much strength. I think as long as it's put in sort of sequentially in a fitness program with range of motion stuff, with then it's perfectly fine. So that would be my number one thing I would look at is because if I have guys that are doing that or girls, I would just want to maintain range of motion along with the addition of strength and muscle. And as long as that happens, then we should be okay. So that's where I would look with it.
Yeah, and I don't want to come across as saying that it's not good to go out and have a good fitness routine. And sometimes people can be very aggressive with the routines. I think obviously you have to be careful of injury and things like that, and especially if you're doing a really aggressive type of routine, then you're going out and playing golf, which is obviously can be very stressful on the body. You certainly want to be, Tiger's a great example of somebody who has been in phenomenal shape for most of his career, but now we're starting to see some of those injuries that have come up here lately. His back, he's having some similar problems to what Freddie Couples did there for a while, and now, of course, he's had knee operation after knee operation, and that's certainly going to happen. But and that's just, again, he's had an aggressive swing pretty much his whole career, and the body's going to have its toll. So I think what I want to really get across to people that are listening to the program tonight is we're certainly not discouraging going out there and doing that. We want you to be mindful of really a lot of the opportunities. Jamie, you've made some great suggestions, as well as Bob and Eric. But we want people to be mindful that just because golf is not categorized as a sport the same way as maybe baseball or football or soccer and some of the other ones, or looked at in the sporting world quite the same. It does require a certain amount of strength. It certainly requires a lot of stability and a lot of flexibility. And I think people have to be mindful of that and in whatever fitness regime that they have. And on that note, any final thoughts before I let you guys say a couple of points about what you're doing and things like that? Anybody want to chime in just for a last comment or two?
I'll say something to that. I think with these younger golfers, tour players, you're starting to hear the laundry list of injuries that they have, and I think the main reason of that is specialization. These guys, men and women, have started playing golf at an early age, and basically that's all they did. And, playing golf only because of the fact that it's a repetitive, one-sided activity will actually develop deficiencies and imbalances in the body. So, regardless of what sports you play or what activity you do, it's always important to keep balance in the body so that the body moves efficiently and you reduce the potential for injury. And so that's why I think you're seeing, this long-term player development coming down from Canada more for the young kids and making sure that they develop all their motor skills and not just specialize just in one activity only. And I think that's important.
Yeah, very well said. Eric, I'm going to start off with you, and then Jamie, and then Bob. Eric, if you just want to let everybody know that's interested, it's going to be up your way if they want to get in touch with you, or if there's anything particular that you're working on right now that you want to share with the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So at my website that I can be reached at is the letters EC, golfcoaching.com. I'm on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all that as well. Just search for Eric Agorno, and I'd be happy to have anyone who's in the area. Absolutely.
Perfect. And, of course, if you're up in the Pennsylvania area, especially in the Bethlehem, Pennsylvania area, you can certainly visit him at the Bethlehem Golf Club. And I'm sure Eric would be more than happy to help you out with your golf game. And thank you, Eric, for coming on tonight and sharing your thoughts and input. Jamie, I know you've got some things that you're got coming up here. Do you want to share it with the listeners?
Sure, thank you. Well, basically, people can get in touch with me through kiaigolf.com, KIAIGOLF.com. I blend martial arts, psychology, and fitness with golf instruction. I travel quite a bit, so I may be in your area, and people can look on my website for where I'll be. But what I'm really excited about is a retreat that I'm going to be doing with Renee Powell, who is an LPGA Tour trailblazer and legend. And we are co-teaching together a retreat April 10th to the 12th at Chardonnay Golf Course in Napa. Wine through the vineyards, absolutely beautiful. And it's going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3 concentrated days focused on women, golf, and business. So the website, it's really going to be great. We're going to be doing a lot of intensive golf training, but also working on the business skills of golf and helping women to also capitalize on the business opportunities, the leadership development, the sense of empowerment and focus and all that good stuff. And so the website for that is everybusinesswomangolf.com, and it's woman, WOMAN, everybusinesswomangolf.com, or they can go to my website, email me, or my phone number is 760-492-GOLF. 4653. But we're really excited about this upcoming golf retreat and still have room if people want to join in for that.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jamie. And Bob, I know you've got lots to do in the fitness end of it. And Bob, if you want to let people know how they can get in touch with you if they're interested in a fitness assessment, number one, but obviously if they want to learn more about how to get golf ready and how to stay in shape and fit for the upcoming season.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. I have a website at golfitcarolina.com. It's golfit. There's one F and one T, golfitcarolina.com. There's a bunch of articles and exercise videos there about all the information we talked about tonight. I have a book called Functional Golf Fitness Training, which you can get on either Amazon or the Book Patch. And I'm anybody who's going to be in the Myrtle Beach area, South Carolina, I'm going to be doing a golf fitness workshop on Saturday, April 18th at the Golf Academy of America at 9 a.m., and that's a free workshop. You can attend that. And I'll be doing one on April 1st in the Greensboro, North Carolina area at Greensboro National. And all that information will be on the website.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Eric and Jamie and Bob for coming on and sharing. I know we can't, even though we had an hour, it's very difficult to get everything in that time, but I wanted to give just a little flavor, if you will, about fitness and obviously a little bit of nutrition. I could have gone into a little more nutrition, I think, but again, that's a very individual and personal journey, if you will, but I think people got the point of what we were trying to say here tonight. So thank you, guys, for joining me, and I hope to have each and every one of you back here on the program again in the future.
Thanks, Ted.
Thanks, Ted.
Thank you, Ted.
All right.
Thanks to all of you.
All right, thank you. All right, good night, guys. Okay, that was Eric Agorno, Jamie Leno-Zimron, and Bob Foreman on the Coach's Corner panel tonight. And joining me now, I see he's been waiting very patiently in the wings, is a gentleman that was actually on the panel last week on Coach's Corner, Tim Kremer. Let me just tell you a little bit about Tim, for those of you that maybe didn't get a chance to tune in. Last week, he is the president and founder of Spirit of Golf, LLC. And I'll just tell you a little bit about him. He's a visionary peak performance coach and consultant based out of Stuart, Florida. As I said, he's the president and founder of Spirit Golf, LLC, which is a program utilizing innovative and pioneering mind-body coaching techniques that help participants, both athletes and non-athletes, access peak mind states for greater success and joy in both golf and life. And it's through the Spirit of Golf that he conducts workshops, clinics throughout the country, and works privately with athletes on most of the major golf tours. So he's got quite a few players that he's working with, and is also an author, lecturer, and national keynote speaker. And he was selected to speak at the 2013, my tongue's tied, PGA Teaching and Coaching Summit. And a lot of great work that Tim's doing, and was a great guest on the panel. So let me bring him out. We're going to talk a little bit about Spirit of Golf. Good evening, Tim, and welcome back to Golf Talk Live.
Thanks very much, Ted. How are you this evening?
Not too bad. My tongue's getting a little bit tied from talking so much, so I'm going to let you do a little more of the talking at this point. But thank you for coming back on, and I just want to make a quick note. As you know, Tim, and many of the others, I want to first off thank everybody for all of the birthday wishes this past week. Tim, I know that you posted on my Facebook page, and actually my page actually blew up, I think, literally as the week went on. But thank you very much. But I kind of had a pre-senior moment, if you will, coming up to that, because when we were on the program last week, I had mentioned about extending out an invitation to have you and one of the others, come on, and I didn't put two to two together that you were coming on the very next week. So I have to apologize to you for having that senior moment.
No worries. I guess you just have to be careful what you ask for, because sometimes it happens more quickly than you think. Yeah.
But welcome back, and thank you for doing this, and I'm looking forward to our time here. Tell us first off a little bit about Spirit of Golf. I mean, I gave sort of a little insight of what you do, but just explain maybe a little bit more detail exactly what your approach is, and why did you develop the Spirit of Golf program?
Yeah, well, Spirit of Golf has been around for a little while, but the essential part of the program, what I really specialize is working on the emotional component of the game. We hear a lot of times that golf is a very mental sport, and I think that we lump together the emotions with the mental side of the game, but have really separated that out. I think more that the mental side of the game is more the processing that we do, say club selection and wind direction and lie of the ball and where in the green we want to hit it. The reason that I am so passionate about the emotional side of the game is the research that I have come across over the past decade really points to the emotions as the leading, I like to say the foundation of everything that we see around us. For example, what we now know about the way that the brain works, the way that we perceive information, is it really is perceived through the emotions first. So kind of a nutshell approach is that we only see outside of us what we first believe to be possible and true. And so until we get into those mind states of belief, we're basically just fighting with ourselves through the frustration and the anxiety and things like that. So those are kind of the things that I work with my athletes on. How do we deal with those on an emotional level, and just having outstanding success with these athletes as they get tapped into better mind states of possibility and belief.
Now, obviously, when you're dealing with the athletes, they get it. They understand that their emotions have to be in check and have to work in conjunction with all of the other areas. But for some of the not so talented out there that kind of have this attitude, and I'm sure you've heard it a million times. They're sitting there thinking to themselves, they're hearing this right now, and they're thinking, well, what are my emotions? I mean, if I hit a good shot, I'm happy. If I don't hit a good shot, I'm not happy. Yeah. What can I do about that? So how do you, when you hear something like that, how do you approach that, and how do you sort of explain to them how important that union is with their emotions and their mind?
Yeah, well, it's a great question, and you're absolutely right. Nobody wants to be out there upset and not in a good mood, because I really do have a belief that most athletes in general, golfers, they do know that when they're not in a good mood or in a good emotional space, that performance is going to suffer. So nobody seems to argue with that. The issue is, what do we do with that when we're in a bad mood? And I guess the nutshell answer that I've got is we've got to learn to, in some ways, have emotions out in front of performance, so that emotions are strong and stable, and then the game takes place, but it doesn't affect us. And that's the hard work that we do. Even when you say, well, tour players have this, I'm here to tell you most of them don't, and we see that all the time. That we see a lot of very still volatile tour players who really, they've got the physical. Ted, you've been to events too. They can all flat out hit the ball. I mean, that's just not even an issue. And mentally, I think they're all very strong. They make good decisions on the course. But when the emotions are not in place, everything seems to break down. And there's very good reason for that. Is even how the muscles and joints within the body move are all tied into the emotions. I mean, the emotions are really the front line of how we perceive information, how the body moves, whether it moves in a state of flow and ease, which of course is optimal, or whether it moves with tension and resistance. It's all set up by the emotions.
And you know what's interesting with what you were just talking about is, and then going back to the tour players, it's interesting when you watch the tour player. What their first thing they will do is right away they will look at the swing. What am I doing wrong here? As opposed to what's going on inside. And I mean, we can name player after player after player. I mean, Nicklaus is probably but one of the only ones that I know of that didn't go this route. But a lot of the players, what they'll do is you'll see them trying to reinvent the wheel. Nick Follow has even done that, where he's gone out, playing some bad rounds, and suddenly he's working on all the mechanics of the swing. Why do so many of the good players, even forget the amateurs for a second, why do so many of the good players continue to fall back on it's got to be the swing instead of maybe looking at their emotions and obviously the mental side of things?
Yeah, it's a great question, and my belief is that it really gets into the tangibility of what we see. For example, if I take my hands and I change them on the grip of the club, I'm going to see an immediate difference in ball flight. And so there's the idea that swing is what determines ball flight. When we get into a good mood out there, say maybe an unusually good mood for a day, or we let it slip for a hole or two or whatever, we don't see the real-time correlation between emotion and ball flight. And so I do think that it's just the temptation that we've got is that something outside of me is really affecting performance, which of course to some extent it does. But I think we miss the first cause of that performance, and that is the way the emotions are setting it up. Another analogy that I'm really fond of sharing is that what I share in my clinics and things like that is just it's almost like I view the emotions almost like the foundation. If we're building a new home, and we can have a beautiful, beautiful home that we build, much the same as we can have a beautiful, beautiful golf swing. But if the foundation, if the emotions are shaky, all bets are off, and really, the house itself begins to crumble before very long because we haven't built it on a steady platform, a steady foundation, being the emotions.
Right, and I want to add something because you had sent me something earlier today that you wanted to sort of introduce in it, and it kind of goes along with again, the swing and what we're talking about here. And this is, of course, going to be tomorrow, as I understand, is going to be your thought of the day. And I want to read it out, and then I want you to respond to it. Your thought, of course, is it is ironic how we would never get sloppy with the swing, yet allow the emotions, the component that determines how the body moves during the swing, to be totally out of control. And which kind of goes to what I was just talking about is everybody seems to attack the swing. It's got to be something in the swing. It's got to be something now mechanically. Right. But really, in actual fact, what you were just talking about is it's really not always the swing. The guys that are getting out there on tour, and gals as well, as you said, if you've been to events, these guys and gals can hit the ball, out of the park. So, but yet they continue to focus on that area. So going to your thought here, expand a little bit more about that.
Well, optimally, every golfer knows that it's the smooth transfer of energy that comes when we're in states of ease and flow. I mean, if we talk about the zone, for example, as being, the peak optimal state of performance, and I think most athletes would agree, and those of us who have been in the zone, there's probably nothing better when we're on the golf course than to be playing in the zone. It's effortless and it's easy and time stands still and wonderful, wonderful emotional qualities. When we're not in the zone, we're generally trying way too hard. And there's no way we can be running upset emotions. We can't be angry and hope to be in the zone. Those would be two energies that are just not, they're just not, they're not jiving with each other. And so we can't play angry golf for very long and hope to be in a state of optimal peak performance. And so I do find it funny, or interesting, I should say, that we work so diligently on the swing, and yet we'll let our emotions get just sloppy. And I think that really a big part of what that is the students don't generally recognize the emotions. Now, of course, nobody wants to play mad, but they don't really realize how the emotions fire up the cells of the body and the muscles and the joints. If they did, they would realize very quickly we can't get away with that and hope to optimize performance. And it's ironic that they would never sit, and say go however many degrees flat or whatever with their swing plane just because they were getting sloppy on purpose. And yet with the emotions, we just seem to think that we can walk around all day and just have our little hissy fits and that, no big deal. It's not, it doesn't work that way. I mean, the bottom line is it just doesn't work that way.
Right. And I agree wholeheartedly. Tim, you wrote an article here you had mentioned in some of the notes that you sent me discussing the difference between peak performance, which is what you're teaching, and traditional sports psychology. Share a little bit about the article and explain what the difference is.
Well, I think both are really, really very valuable approaches. But one of the things with what I share through Spirit of Golf is it's tied a little bit more into some of the new research in consciousness and maybe even quantum physics. One of the things we talk about is that every story we tell ourselves becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if we're giving something our attention, we really make it out to be true. Now, that's not a lot different, and we kind of sense this when the whole idea of, don't think about the water, because if you think you're going to hit it in the water, you probably will, and it's really not a whole lot different than that. With my private students, and one of the things they love is that we really don't talk about problems at all. They don't come in and we don't rehash what's not going well with their games. And it's really more solution-based, and they seem to like this a lot. It's my belief that whatever we give our attention to, whether it's problems or solutions, that's what we see more of. And so it's a little bit different than a traditional approach where I would go in and we would sit down and I would just tell you everything about my game that's bothering me and this isn't going right and you would sit and listen to me and then we would come up with something, as opposed to, I would just say, okay, Ted, what do you want? I mean, what do you want? Well, I want to feel better. I want to hit more fairways. I want this and that. We work on it from that approach as opposed to the problem approach. Right.
Now, you also had mentioned several times here that you've obviously worked with a lot of players, especially on the tours. What are some of the things that you do to try and help these players stay calm before they're ready to make a shot? And then also, is there a follow-up afterwards that you do to try and help them maintain that emotional feeling?
Yeah, that's a great question, because the work that I do really it involves two things, which is one is done in the pre-shot routine and the other is done in what we call the post-shot routine. The biggest issue that I see with most golfers, in fact, I was just working with one of the Canadian junior teams earlier this week, is that they would hit shots they didn't like, and right away the heads are shaking and the lips are moving, and it's just and the clubs are dropping and this and that. So there's that immediate reaction after something that we don't like. Well, the problem with that is that before long what we start to see is we see an energy leak. So that it only takes a few bad shots before the body really gets depleted of kind of that positive momentum, that we need if we're going to play our best. And so that's a key component, is that we move into that space of what I like to call acceptance after shots we don't like.
Right.
We don't have to like it. We're never gonna hit a ball. And I jokingly say, you're never going to hit a ball in the water. You're never going to hit one out of bounds and stand there and say, wasn't that just a lot of fun?
Yeah.
We don't have to like it, but we do have to get over it, and we have to learn to get over it very quickly, because if we don't, it becomes a very almost addictive pattern to hit a bad shot, get upset, hit a bad shot, get upset. And before long, after 3 or 4 shots or whatever, we're really starting down a very slippery slope that we're not going to recover from that day, where we've let the emotions get so out of control. And kind of the way we do that is what I do is that I work with them on getting into a strong, stable place in the pre-shot routine. And one of the things that we do in all the clinics that I do, and it just amazes them, I'll have somebody, for example, show me their pre-shot routine. And they show me a beautiful pre-shot routine. They'll go through, I come up to the ball and I check the line, I check the wind, my yardage, and then I pull out this club and I take a practice swing, and sometimes it's a waggle and sometimes it's to duplicate the swing or whatever. But invariably, nobody has ever said, and this is in 7 years of doing this now, nobody's ever said, and I stand there and I breathe in a feeling of calmness, or I breathe in a feeling of confidence, or I breathe in some emotion of how I want to feel for this shot that I'm about to hit. And it's ironic, because when we don't do that, we really leave the emotions wide open to susceptibility of all of our bad patterns. So we hit it and we don't like it, or we hit it and we like it, but either way, the emotions become very dependent upon our perception of the quality of the shots that we hit. So that's why we're up, we're down, we're up, we're down, we're up, we're down, and there's really very little emotional stability in the process. So what I really work with these athletes on, and even in the clinics, we work on sustaining states of emotional stability. And it's almost like, I get into a confident state, and, oh, by the way, I'm going to hit a golf shot. And so that we give ourselves the best opportunity to stay in that space so that we start running the show rather than the show running us.
What about players, and here's something a little bit different. Obviously, in the heat of a round, you're going to experience, and I'm talking about the player here for a second, some of the players that you work with, they're going to hit some bad shots, and they're going to have to use some of these skills that you're talking about. But what about the players that are showing up for a tournament that maybe they've been, most of them I know are flying into the airports and stuff. But let's say they've got their rental cars, and they're on their way to the first round, and suddenly, somebody cuts them off, and somebody else is doing this, and they're just in a bad mood. How do you sort of teach them the skills to say, okay, forget about what happened out on I-95, or forget about what happened over here, or maybe they fought with their wife the night before, or husband, or whatever the case may be, and now they're bringing that emotional baggage with them. It's not always easy to shed that skin. How do you handle something like that with some of the players?
It's not always easy to shed that skin, but two things are going on. One is, I guess, I begin with an intellectual understanding that really we are in charge of, ultimately, we're in charge of our emotions. And to the extent, and this ties a little bit into the brain research, we think it's the golf shot, or we think that it's the traffic, or we think it's this or that is upsetting us. But the reality is it's not. It's only upsetting us because we're already firing brain patterns of being upset, and so it's almost like we're already upset, and now the things we see outside of us are just, in a way, proving that we were upset. So we kind of have to begin with the baseline that we really do own our emotions, and that to the extent that we allow these other things to impact us, and granted, Ted, I'm not saying this is easy work, but to the extent we say, well, that golf shot is what made me mad, we really fall into a victim mode. The golf shot didn't make you mad. You might have allowed yourself to get upset, but the golf shot didn't have any power to make you mad, nor did it have power to make you happy. It's not to say we don't like to hit good golf shots, but it's the same with the traffic. The traffic really doesn't have the power over you to make you mad. Now, most of us have those, kind of those old patterns that we revert back to. So
right.
The issue then is really, what do we do with that? And this is where the detachment skills really come in. And it's really no different after they hit a bad golf shot. In that, and the best tool we've got for that is the breath, and by just going to the breathing. And so, what I'll have my students do, and I work with them a lot on breath work, and I would maintain that there is not an elite athlete in the country in any sport that
right.
doesn't really know how to use the breath effectively. So we use the breath really to detach from unwanted emotion. And that's always a great start. And then they'll say, well, yeah, I'm breathing, but I'm still mad. And this is a very important point of distinction, is then you weren't really focused on the breath. You went back immediately to your
right.
to your feeling of being upset. You can't be focused on the breathing and the thing that is upsetting you in the same moment. The mind will go to one or the other, but it can't be both. So the breath is really very, very, very effective. But most of us would sooner, I jokingly say, we'd sooner be right about being mad about something than we would happy. And as long as that's the case, we're going to keep finding things to be upset about.
Yeah, and that's true, and we're all guilty of that, of course. Tim, I know that you had initiated or launched a certification program, instructor certification program, I believe last year. How's it doing, and how has it been received by some of the coaches out there?
Yeah, it's been an incredible program, and I'm pleased to say that it continues to grow. We've got a couple of international coaches now, and coaches from throughout the United States, and what the coaches are finding is, and the reason that they love it, and first of all, they really do buy into the emotional work that I share and that we teach. They're finding when they can get their students into that good emotional state of mind, their lessons are so much easier. It is so much easier to teach a student that isn't just upset about every shot that doesn't go where they want it to go.
Sure.
That they're finding this stuff is great, and as total coaches, they're also able to coach them much better, because a big part of what they coach is when students come back in the next week or whatever. Hey, how'd you do out there? And the first thing they'll start talking about is all their problems. And so even the ability to shortcut that and just say, well, okay, we're not going to do that today. We're going to talk about solutions and what you want. We're going to figure out ways to do that. And ironically, the students like that too. It's almost like it's an approach that I just don't think we've done that much of before, because most of the time we're so, as you said, we're so focused on swing, and that's the thing. And the misconception there is that if my swing is good enough, then I'll be happy, and it's
right.
just not possible. I mean, unless you get happy first, you're not going to be happy. There's nothing outside of us that can keep us happy for very long. And particularly, as we know in this game, goodness gracious, we hit it good, we hit it bad, we hit it, and if we're doing that, just the emotions are bouncing all over the place all day, every day.
One of the I think best examples, and I don't want to go down a path of regurgitating or analyzing Tiger to death, because everybody out there has their theories, but really what you're talking about here tonight is something I think that Tiger sort of fits that mold. If you look at Tiger, everybody can say, well, he's got a new swing coach, he's worked with so and so and changed this and that. I really don't think the issue is Tiger's swing as much as it is his emotions that have really caused him to sort of falter from grace, if you will, here these last few years. Set it up again without getting into too much things about Tiger, because I know you're not working necessarily with him, but in your opinion, from what you see and how he's handling himself in today's sort of game, if you will, do you feel that that's what's really happening with him here these last few years, is his emotions are just not in check, and it's really not the golf swing, and that maybe he's, again, what we talked about a few minutes ago, falling into that trap where he's really trying to work on some things which, may need tuning up here and there, but really it's not the golf swing that he needs to work on.
Well, I guess I would absolutely go along that line. But even, because here's the deal. I get asked about Tiger a lot. And what I'd like to say is that, first of all, I don't understand what internally he's going through. And none of us ever do. I mean, I think it's a disservice what I hear, week in, week out.
Right.
Oh, this is what's happening, when we don't really ever know what somebody's experience is. Now, with that being said, from what I've observed on TV, and it's not just him, but I just don't think that if we're that volatile after our unwanted golf shots, we can't be in zone-like states of peak performance and having, again, our meltdowns after the shots we don't like and hope to sustain peak performance. The other thing that I would say is when we look at the guys who are winning, and I do kind of think there's a new breed out there now, by and large, and they're laughing and they're smiling and they're having fun, and even within the body's energy system, which is really what I work with a lot. Well, fun is and enjoyment and passion are such high vibrating emotional energies compared to frustration and anger and whatever. So even if you just look at them from a scientific standpoint, that those higher vibrating emotions over time are always going to outperform those that are low vibrating. It just, in the body, is the way the cells communicate with each other and fire with each other. And so, you can't be having meltdowns out there and hope to sustain it for very long. It just doesn't work. So, in Tiger's case, I do think that the other, that it cannot be helped. Negative emotion over time it just doesn't help. And then the other thing that I would say is that what we see is that, in effect, that those who are having fun, those who are enjoying themselves, and those who just, it's almost like I get up, I hit the shot, I accept it, I move on, I go find it again, and this is what's helping them to play their best golf.
Yeah, and I think, as you look back on careers like Jack Nicklaus, of course, as he, got up there in age, and I think Tiger's starting to experience that. I mean, I know he's still quite young yet, but I think age also has a lot to do with it. I mean, obviously he has a lot of experience. And I think too, there's not the same fire, that he may have, or the same passion. I mean, and again, without getting inside of Tiger, nobody really knows but Tiger, but there just doesn't appear to be that. And I think once you lose that, like you were talking about, excuse me. Once you sort of lose that passion and your emotions change, and it's no longer fun, that's certainly going to affect. And again, it goes back to that mood. Once your mood sort of changes to more of a negative frame as opposed to a positive, it's certainly going to affect the physical part of the game as well.
Well, it does. And one of the things I'm fond of saying is that, first of all, is that, I believe mood is everything. And the stuff I've come across, again, which I love, is that says, we will never see performance that is at a higher level than the mood. It's a wild concept, but you will not see physical performance that exceeds our attitude and mood, and I find that fascinating. So basically, you're not going to outperform yourself based solely upon your mood. It doesn't work that way, and so I do see that, and I kind of call it the aging warrior. That they were at the top of their games, and it can't be easy, I wouldn't think, to be the best, really the best in the world, and to see that slip, from your fingertips in front of you. I'm not sure many of us would be equipped to just, just smile, and there has to be that that burning desire that isn't going to go away.
Sure.
And so, and so it's got to be difficult to take. I'm not suggesting, the other thing I'd like to say about the work that I do, Ted, with the emotions is that this is not about character flaw stuff. I know a lot of times we say the emotions and character and whatever. I look at it more from a almost like an energy standpoint, that if our primary mood out there is one of frustration, you could draw a line straight across it and say that performance will mirror frustration. If it's one of joy, then performance mirrors joy. So it's more of just a linear approach to, these are what the emotions are. You can draw a line across, and this is the level of performance that we will see. And so, again, it's not a character assault. I hear that a lot with the emotions.
Right.
Somehow we're head cases or we're this or that, and I find that a very unfortunate approach. We've all got emotions. Some of us deal with them a little more effectively than others, but it doesn't make somebody flawed just because they're emotional on the golf course.
No, and there's been players over the years, and I think, was it Rory Sabatini was one that, used to be very emotional sometimes on the golf course. And a lot of people thought, well, he's got a bad attitude, but it's just he was an emotional player. Another one I'm trying to think of, from Europe. Gosh, I can't think of. Anyways, it'll come to me in a moment, I'm sure. But players over the years, even Seve Ballesteros, the late Seve Ballesteros, was a very emotional player. But he was able to use and channel that emotion in order to, he was probably one of the winningest coaches for the Ryder Cup, for the European Ryder Cup.
Right.
And, he was able to, in his own way, be as intimidating as Tiger was out on tour in the Ryder Cup for him. I mean, he was a very effective motivator, and he had that passion and that. And, even though Europe has done extremely well even since him, this is something I think that I wish we would see more of here in the U.S. I think the U.S. is need of a Seve Ballesteros type. And I think that a lot of them, and again, I'm not trying to criticize them, they all, I'm sure, do a great job, but I think that's something, that needs to be worked on more than the golf swing. But, Tim, you also, I know that you've indicated many of the tour players carry this with them as their sort of go-to when their mind game is off. You've written a book called Skills and Drills, Peak Performance Techniques for the Athletic Mind. Tell us a little bit about the book, or share what you can. I mean, you don't want to give it all away, obviously. We want people to get it. But
no, that's fine. No, actually, the book is, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not worried about giving it away. It's the book has been wonderful. It contains a couple charts in it. It's got an emotional energy scale, and the other thing that it's got a grid of 16 different emotions. And actually, the grid has been fantastic in terms of there's emotions on there like happiness, eagerness, confidence, trust, things like that. And really, the skills that I work with all of my athletes are, okay, if you could dial an emotion right now into your pre-shot routine, what would it be? And they'll choose one based upon, some guys want to, for example, they want to get a little bit calmer, so they might choose calmness as an emotion.
Right.
They want to feel more calm and centered in the pre-shot routine. But it's really the deliberate front-loading of the emotions in the routine. Ted, this hasn't been talked about before. We really have, in my opinion, we've ignored emotions as one of the leading causes for the way the body is about to move. And I find it fascinating that we have not given more attention to it. I guess the good news is we're starting to. And so, that's all covered in the book. And the book has breathing exercises and different breathing exercises, some to stimulate energies and some to calm them down. Because, again, we've talked a lot about breathing, but a lot of coaches are just like, just breathe. But there's times you got to breathe in energy, for example, when you're feeling lethargic or you're getting bored. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is that the tour players who are out there week in, week out, they struggle a lot more with nervousness and boredom than the weekend golfers who are all uptight. If they're not in the hunt, a lot of times it's almost like, another week where it's just playing average, and how do you get yourself a little excited and inspired? And so that's the very, very, very different techniques than when you're coming down, you're coming down the last hole. You got the lead. Well, you better have a very different set of breathing techniques in order to calm the energies down. Because if you don't, and you certainly, we've all seen this, where it's almost like they get to the last hole and it's like, holy crap, here I am in the lead, and it's not a lot different than a deer in headlights, where, it's like, oh man. And some of them can handle it pretty well, and others are not so good, and that's part of the learning experience and everything like that. So the book certainly goes through exercises like that too. Another thing it talks about is things within our control and things not within our control. It's pretty interesting. The higher caliber the player, the more they think that they can control outcomes, when if you think about it, everybody has missed a foot and a half putt in competition, and even the tour players will say that they. So if you're missing a foot and a half, ultimately our ability to control the outcomes, it just is not what we think it is. So the thing I like to point out is really the only thing that we can control, when you think about it, within the game of golf, is how we feel, our emotions. Beyond that, you can't control the weather, your playing partners, the conditions of the greens, things like that. So you got to really decide to let go of those things if you're going to optimize performance, because otherwise you're just going to be upsetting yourself over things outside your control. And that's not a good approach to the game. So, the book covers all that stuff, and it's actually been very, very well received.
And where, if somebody wants to get a copy of the book, where can they get a copy?
Yeah, it's available on Amazon, and it's also available through my website, which is www.myspiritofgolf.com. They can Google Spirit of Golf, and it'll show up. But we certainly sell the books through our website too. So I highly recommend it. It's even my tour players and mini tour players, they're carrying it with them, or some of the charts or whatever. And these are skills that they revisit quite often. In fact, if you were to talk to most of these players right now, and I just had a young woman who won the Symetra Tour for a few weeks ago out in California. Name's Katie Kempter, and if you were to talk to Katie, she would just be the first to say a year ago she was so not ready with this stuff, and since she has gotten just strong and stable out there, it's just it makes all the difference in the world. They're not as nervous. They're able to finish. They're just doing what the other athletes are not. So it's been really, really well received.
Yeah, and I think as more information is becoming available in the golf industry, as you alluded to earlier, and some of the coaches are realizing the importance of not just having a good sound golf swing, but obviously being able to think their way around the course and being able to keep their motions in check. More and more of them are gravitating to obviously what you're offering here with your certification program, in order to have that as a tool for the coaches, and not just the players, but the coaches as well, to be able to help the players that they're working with, and not just at the tour level, but even at the high handicappers. A lot of handicappers out there, or high handicappers, don't understand. They think it's just something that's available for the tour players, but it's really not. It's something that we all need to. I don't care what level you're playing at. I mean, can still play some good golf, but every once in a while, my emotions get the best of me as well. So, it's something that we all need to work on. And I think as more and more becomes available in the golf industry, we certainly need to get it out there and share it, not just with the players, but also with those that are instructing. And absolutely. It's amazing as I travel the country, and the clinics that I do are mainly at some of the very nice private clubs, and by and large, most of the time, really relatively higher handicap players who attend this, and it is just amazing to me how much they love this, because nobody ever taught them how not to beat up on themselves out there. It's like they would say, well, you just got to be nicer to yourself out there, or you just got to start being more positive. But I think one of the differences with this program is we've actually got very, very tangible skills for how you do that, and what you do with negative emotion, and really how you keep it from building in the first place. In fact, that's really the key. People will often say, well, how do you not get angry?
And the best answer I've got, and it's not always very satisfying, is you just don't let yourself go there to begin with. So it's almost like you don't put your finger in the tornado, because really once you do, it's too late. And you might get by with it briefly for a shot, but I'll tell you what, unless you draw your line in the sand and say, I'm not going there today. I'm not going to the negative space today. I'm going to the best of my ability, I'm going to detach emotionally from the shots I don't like, and I'm just going to put a smile on my face. I'm going to go find the ball. I'm going to hit it again, and really that is the skill and the practice. But not always easy to do, because we've repeated these habits for years and years and years, and in fact, in many ways, this work is more difficult than the swing work. It's a lot more difficult in some ways to change those reactive patterns, and but very worthwhile as they learn to do this.
And as a teacher, I can tell you that the swing is actually a lot easier to correct the flaws and the faults than what you're talking about. It's much easier, especially once you understand what happens, how the ball reacts to, and I'm referring to obviously ball flight laws. Most of the people that are in the business now understand that, as we've learned that end of things a little bit better. If you were to put together a checklist, let's say for the listeners out there, for some of our high handicap. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. It's just something came to mind that's kind of important. Is that as we work on the swing, and this to me is the difference that I like to say. So it's even as these instructors are working, and I love the swing. I'm just very passionate about the swing. But it's the difference. Let's say, and this is very sophomoric, but at the same time, it's the difference between saying, for example, let's take the club away low and slow. It's the difference between saying that and saying, let's calmly take it away low and slow, or let's happily take it away low and slow, or let's, so it's adding that verb in there of the emotion. It's just adding an emotional component. So we're not just doing it because, as you know, as an instructor, a lot of times when we do that, there's so darn much tension in that move, even on the practice range or even in a lesson. And you're right, when instructors who are getting certified absolutely love the progress that they make when they can get that tension out of even the movements that are being made. So it is that simple in a way, of just adding that emotion into the process. And again, the body relaxes a little bit more. The move becomes much easier. Students see progress. Instructors see it really becomes just it's a win-win-win. So it's wonderful.
It's funny. I was thinking here while I was listening to you, and it reminded me of some of the students that I've worked with. I do a lot of corporate golf. I work with a lot of business types and things like that want to get ready for their corporate events and so forth. And one of the things that has always interested me, or I find kind of humorous, is when it's somebody, it might be a referral or something. I've never actually worked with this person at this point. And when we've got the lesson booked and we're gonna get together, they'll come out well in advance of their time, and they'll be out there on the range, and they'll be trying to get their swing just looking right before they come up and talk to me. But then as that relationship progresses, that time that they come up beforehand is shortened. Number one, before the lesson begins, they'll shorten that time because now they're comfortable. They're used to me seeing it. And really, the only reason they're coming that a few minutes before the lesson starts is they want to make sure they get fresh in their mind what we talked about last week or the week before. And it's just kind of and it's just kind of funny how again, even emotion plays in that. It's they're very panicky, they're very jittery on the first impression. They want to make sure they've made a good impression to me. But then as they become more comfortable and more relaxed, suddenly it's not important anymore. And I'm not trying to say that they don't do their homework, but they're not as uncomfortable in the scenario as they are in the beginning. And that's something that instructors have to be mindful of as well, I think.
Well, again, what you're describing to a T is that their emotions, their mindset has changed. And so as they relax into how they do it, it makes it easier for you. The other thing, and this comes up, and you have to have heard this one time and again as well. When I'm on the practice range, it's just everything's good, and then I take it to the course. Why is that? And the best response I got, first of all, your story has definitely changed. You've changed the story from whatever it was on the practice range to now it matters or whatever, and somehow that story has introduced more tension. But the other thing that I find, and this was kind of like something that I've developed over the past however many years, and even with the tour players, and they sometimes experience the same thing too. Well, when I'm practicing, I'm not nervous, but the absence of being nervous on the practice range is still not developing a skill. So it's not developing calmly hitting a golf shot. Does that make sense? So it's almost like they're not nervous, and so they just make an assumption that, well, this is the way it should be on the course, but they've never proactively developed into their swing and into the way the brain perceives things and the way the body moves. They've never front-loaded any motion into the process that they now can borrow from once they get on the course. So they do get on the course, but they got nothing to bring as an experience on the course because they've never really practiced calmness. When they're calm, all that they do is reinforce not being nervous. Okay.
Yeah, and it's just interesting when I watch and listen to a lot of the players that I work with, and as I said, I do a lot of corporate work in my line of teaching, and it's just an area that I decided I wanted to sort of specialize in, if you will. And it's just interesting how much pressure, all year long they won't get out there, they'll play a few rounds here and there, they won't do things. Sure. And then all of a sudden they've got that corporate event, or they've got, something that they've got to do, in their work, and of course golf's now in the mix, and suddenly they come scrambling and say, well, Ted, what can I do? Help me. My nerves are shattered, and I try to bring them to that sort of state of calmness as well, and just say, look, it's not, don't focus on it. Don't worry. Again, it's all about the mechanics. They want to, make my swing better, fix this. I'm slicing the ball. Some of the best players in the world take the game that they have that particular day and use it on the golf course and work it. They don't try to reinvent the wheel. They take with what they got, but what they do is they take a better emotion to the golf course, and that's really what we try to get across. Right.
When they're truly detached from outcome, and where to the point of where they hit it, they enjoy the process, they enjoy the game, they go hit it again, but they don't let the emotions get out of control. Two things happen. One, they enjoy the game more, but it's not just about, I'm in a better mood now, but because they're in a better mood, the body performs more freely, and that's the irony of it. Now, the other thing, though, and I do some corporate things too, but the thing that I've always found with corporates and in a lot of these private clubs and whatever, there's retired CEOs and CFOs and whatever, but that they're used to making things happen. And what I find that I have to share with them is golf is a sport that I believe is most effectively played when we allow the game to come to us. We relax to the point where we just allow it. And that whole process of allowing to these people who are just used to, being in charge and making things happen, it's not a game that lends itself well to that energy. And so it's a very, very, very different mindset for them to, in some ways remove the tension and resistance and grinding in order to just soften the energy a little bit. And when they do, they love it, because it's almost like the first time in their life that, something has come easy to them without them forcing it to happen.
Yeah, and something, too, that is always a test for me. I mean, obviously now in golf, and I'm referring again to the coaching or teaching aspects of it, what's become very common now is on-course instruction, and so it's not just at the range or what have you anymore. A lot of good coaches are taking their players out in real-life situations. And it's always interesting when I see some of the better what I would think would be better players. They're, on the range, they're hitting phenomenal shots, and I'm thinking, wow, that's great. Bob, Bob. That's fantastic. And then we'll go out and play 3 or 4 holes, or even 9 holes, And suddenly it's like, well, where did Bob go? It's like, what happened to Bob on the, from the range?
Yeah.
And that transition period, again, all of a sudden, it's like they're struggling to take what they were doing over on the range out onto the golf course. And again, you're right. CEOs, they want to manage, they want to micromanage everything to death. And I'll say to them, it's not that simple. Golf can humble, virtually anybody out there. And I don't care how good of a ball striker you are. Some of the best players in the world who can hit the ball better than just about anybody else can very easily be humbled when the round is not going well. And it's not it's not because their physical ability has suddenly gone in the crapper. It's because either their emotions or something else has crept in that's preventing them from getting the job done. And that's really what I think a lot of the industry is starting to focus on now. And the better players obviously have the advantages of having some of these great individuals such as yourself and others come into play. And this is what we have to transition now into the everyday golfer and make that more accessible for them as well.
Well, exactly, and I guess again the point being that it's my firm contention that we really have to get the emotions stable and out in front of the conditions, because if all we're doing is responding to conditions, if all we're doing is responding to golf shots, we're just in for a yo-yo game, and what I like to say, a yo-yo life. If you can't get emotions more stable than that, and so that really is. And when we do, it's pretty incredible, because not only are we happier, but we're also, in many ways, now we're functioning at a much higher level, and performance has to improve. It just does. That's the fun part of this, is that as I become more stable with who I am, then things just don't rock me off course. And really, I don't know of an athlete that wouldn't like to do that. Now, learning those skills is challenging for most of them, but there's nobody who disagrees with this process, just not a lot of people teaching the process.
Yeah, and hopefully as we move forward with with the industry, hopefully more and more will start to gravitate to this side of it, because I think as some early on, like Nicholas and some of the others, understood the importance of their emotions and the mental side of the game, how important that was, and I've said this, and a lot of people may disagree, but Jack certainly wasn't the best ball striker. He certainly was good, but he wasn't the best ball striker on tour, even in his day.
Absolutely.
And it was his emotions, and it was his ability to be able to maneuver his way and think and recover when he did have those. That's why it really was. He was a master recoverer, really, if you think about it, because he hit some pretty bad shots. I've witnessed it firsthand, watching him when he used to come up and play the Canadian Open. So, and that's something that the players are starting to realize now too. Tim, I want to thank you for coming on. I'm looking at the clock here, and I see we're getting down to the last couple of minutes, and I've enjoyed it, and it's very interesting what you've come to share with us this evening, and I want to thank you for joining us. And I want to just give you a moment or two, if you want, just to remind everybody where they can get a copy of your book and how they can get in touch with you if they're interested in learning more about Spirit of Golf.
Sure. Well, basically what we've got going, we do have a thought of the day. It goes out throughout the world, and that's easy to sign up. That's on the homepage of our website, and that's www.myspiritofgolf.com. So we've got that going. We've got a lot of CDs and books and things like that available through our store. Principally skills and drills with peak performance techniques for the athletic mind. That's the one. If somebody really wants the how-to book, that's the one that they would want to get, and that would be best. I do clinics throughout the country that are being exceptionally well received, and so that's going on. We do have the instructor certification program, and I highly encourage any instructor who's interested in assimilating some of these mind techniques into their coaching practice. It has been invaluable, and would be happy to have them get in touch with any of our certified instructors who are just saying that would share with them the results that they're seeing. So yeah, we've got that going on. Of course, on all the social media. I jokingly say that my young players are the ones who have really helped me with the social media in a way that they're like. And I've always had the web page or the social media, the Facebook and things like that. But they're the ones who are helping me do the hashtags, and that's I'm learning all this from them, which is awesome because they help me too. But Twitter and Facebook, both Spirit of Golf, to get on those, and Instagram and all of that. But if you Google Spirit of Golf, you'll be able to find me. My phone number, I'm happy to give. It's 772-879-1978, but it's on our website. And all you've got to do is Google Spirit of Golf, and it's pretty much plastered all over the internet at this point. And I should mention too that Spirit of Golf is about the passion we share for the game. It is not a spiritual program. It's not a religious program. That we really don't hear that too much, but I just want to point that out that's not what that's about. It's the passion for the game and really helping students to tap into that passion.
Well, that's a great way to end another terrific segment. And, Tim, I want to thank you again for coming on Golf Talk Live tonight and sharing the spirit of golf with my listeners and a lot of insight and some great information. So for those out there that play golf, that want to get more information, go to myspiritofgolf.com, as Tim suggested, and pick up one of his books, but also surf around on his page as well. And I'm sure there's a lot of other valuable information. And Tim, you're always welcome to come back here on Golf Talk Live anytime you want. You have an open invitation, and I want to thank you very much for sharing that with my guests, with my audience tonight.
Well, and I got to say, I love what you're doing too, and certainly the exposure you bring to people in programs like ours, and what you're doing has just been fabulous too. It's those of us who are passionate about the game and teachers and coaching and whatever, it really is it's a wonderful opportunity. So I thank you too for this opportunity, and would love to join you again. So thank you.
Well, as I said, you're always welcome, and we'll get you on. I'll double check my schedule again. I think you might be on for some more Coach's Corner, but if not, I'll make sure I get you on. But Tim, again, thank you very much, and for coming on Golf Talk Live. It was I always enjoyed when I do this program. I feel that it's not only benefiting the listeners, but I also learn something myself. So anytime I can help not only my game grow, but my teaching ability grow as well, it's a win-win situation. So Tim, thank you again, and
beautiful. Thanks.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too. Thanks again.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, that was my very special guest, Tim Kremer. He is the founder and president of Spirit of Golf, LLC. And as I said, if you want to learn more about what Tim's doing, if you're a student out there, by all means, you can contact him through myspiritofgolf.com. Or if you're a coach or instructor and you're interested in maybe learning more about his instructor certification program, I also strongly encourage you to visit the website as well and learn more about that. There's some information on there as well. But thank you to also my Coach's Corner panel. One more thank you. Eric Cagorno, Jamie Zimron, and Bob Foreman. Thanks, guys. You did a great job tonight, and I appreciate all the insight. And I want to also a very special thank you to all of the listeners from all over the world for faithfully tuning in each week to Golf Talk Live. I certainly have a great amount of pleasure and enjoyment of having a number of highly talented coaches, teaching professionals, authors, and entrepreneurs that stop by the program and share their thoughts and input into the program. And it's really through their participation and guest appearances that have helped make Golf Talk Live a first-class show. Also, again, a special thank you to some of the supporters and sponsors of the program, Mr. Jonathan Laird of South Coast Golf Guide. Great publication. If you're interested in getting a copy, go to www.southcoastgolfguide.com. Also, Mrs. Meredith Kirk. She was the 2014 Mrs. South Carolina winner, and also owns and operates Meredith Kirk Golf and the Junior Golf Exchange, which you can find more about helping get some clubs into these young kids around the country. Go to juniorgolfexchange.org. Also, and she's out in the Myrtle Beach area, by the way, Nikki and Tiffany Litherland for helping to spread the word about the show. Nikki, I'm going to get you on the program soon, so be patient. And Mr. Bernie Pinder from Ontic Golf, great line of custom-built putters, one of which I happen to own, and very, very proudly, and a great putter. So make sure you reach out to Bernie Pinder on Ontic Golf, and it's ONTIC golf.com. Also, a special thank you to Mr. Sean Kelly. He is the owner of linkedgolfers.com. Sean, as you may have recalled from the last few weeks, mentioning that he runs and operates the largest golf community on LinkedIn, which is a huge social media platform, but he's taken that group and taken it out and now runs it outside as well on linkedgolfers.com. So make sure you go and check out that website. Lots of great information on there as well. And lastly, but certainly not least, Mr. Peter Doyle from Doyle Golf Solutions over in Ireland, my good friend over in Ireland. Thank you, Peter, as well, for all of your support of the program. I will see you guys back here with another Coach's Corner and another great guest next week, right here next Thursday at 6 p.m. Central, right here on Golf Talk Live. God bless everybody and have a great week.